All right, good afternoon, folks, and welcome to another exciting episode of Live with Jeff, Johnny, and Lee. Here we have Jeff and Johnny. Jeff, how are you, sir?
Okay, so far.
That's good. Johnny?
I'm doing well, thank you very much. How are you?
That's well, I'm not doing bad. Not doing bad. I'm getting used to being a trash man. But other than that, it's all good. You have a hell of a map for us today, and
I do.
This is going to be interesting because I haven't even had the opportunity to go over this. So I'm going to zoom out here a little bit.
That's okay.
So everybody gets an idea.
This is where we're going to be. We're going to be, well, all these red points you see. We decided we're going to just go with a clean map, and we're going to take a look at this. Now, before you get down onto that zoom point, let's zoom back out really quickly. Okay. What I want you to do is I want you to take a look. If you just kind of zoom out, you're out a little bit too far. I want you to zoom down on the first point. No, not there. Go back to the point number one, all the way to the north. Right there. Right. So what I want you to do is I want you to zoom out a little bit, and I want you to just take a look at everything that's around the area. You see all these little splotches everywhere that looks like, people have been digging. You know how the Russians do? They dig a hole and then they just throw the dirt out in the middle of a field somewhere. Well, that's not what this is. Okay, here's what's happened. We're going to take a look at this because the Chinese have been brought in by the Russians on timber deals, on clear cutting into Siberia. That's where we are, by the way. And the Chinese, when they go in and they clear cut, they don't replant. And this is not just in this area. This is in this entire region. If you just start moving around a little bit, you'll see this in all different areas. The Russians and some of the Russian people are thinking that this is an ecological disaster in the making because of all the forestry that's just been destroyed.
Well, I should make a comment that above a certain latitude in Siberia and eastern Russia, if you cut down the trees, even if you plant, they won't grow back.
Mm-hmm.
It's the nature of the soil and the nature of the temperatures and the amount of sunlight they get. So I just
okay.
That I've read that in my readings on Russia. So I don't know. And by the way, Stalin and Khrushchev and they've been cutting these trees. So a lot of these patches may not have been done by the Chinese, but by the Gulag prisoners. The black clad ones. The if you're a Gulag prisoner and you were a lumberjack, you'd be wearing black uniforms. They took a lot of these as soldiers at the beginning of World War II in the first strategic echelon. I would. Ecological disaster. Russia has always been a kind of ecological disaster, but it's what people don't know is that above, outside of the Volga basin, and the southern part of Russia down by the Black Sea and between the Caspian and the Black Sea, the soil is very bad in Russia. It's a very, very poor soil. And you'll read that in Russian history books. One of the features of the Russian. Yeah.
Well, I look at this and I think, good Lord. I mean, if you just see all the patches and everything, I mean, you can see where it's starting to grow back a little bit in some areas, but it doesn't look like it's replanted. And I know that we get a lot of the world actually gets a lot of timber out of Siberia. I think we always have, and you can see the massive logging and wood processing operations that they have all throughout Siberia. And the prison systems that they still have there, I guess the modern day gulag is what you could call it. They still have a lot of logging and a lot of processing work that they do within those prison complexes.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think they, except to China, I don't think they export a lot of timber. Canada, New Zealand, I think some South American countries, maybe Chile. I used to know more because I lived in a timber cutting area because they had a lot of sawmills in Northern California and they actually were importing trees because they weren't allowing us to cut our own. So, and one of the fastest growing trees is the redwood tree. So if you cut down redwoods, they grow back faster than anything. But they don't let them cut them very much, at least.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, that's what I noticed when I was out there, and I was kind of inquiring about all these patches of bare land that have just been popping up all over the place.
Yeah, I don't, what I've read is that it doesn't generally, in that region, the forest generally doesn't, I mean, with some exceptions, it doesn't grow back very easily.
So those trees that have been out there, they've been there for a very, very long time then.
Yes, yes. And of course, we know that, that there was some kind of calamity struck the northern Arctic most parts of the world because of all the dead mammoths and the saber-toothed tigers and other animals they found in the permafrost. So there was some kind of catastrophe up there, but the climate, when that catastrophe happened, weirdly, the climate was warm. It's why they find in the stomach of these frozen mammoths like flowers that they're eating that wouldn't grow there now.
I remember you telling me a story. I don't know if it was Lunev that told you the story, but about these Gulag prisoners that found a mammoth when they were digging.
That's from the Gulag Archipelago. That's from Alexander Solzhenitsyn. Yeah, it's a very famous story from the Gulag Archipelago. They were digging the White Sea Canal, and they were on a starvation diet. They were prisoners that were meant to die, to just be worked to death. And what they do when they want to work you to death in the Soviet Union, they put you on, they give you like grass soup. They don't let you have any protein or fat in your diet, and they work you. And these prisoners weren't dying, and the guards were getting suspicious. So the guards were ordered to follow them and see what they were doing. Well, in their digging, they'd come upon a mammoth, and they were eating it raw as they found it in the permafrost, and it was keeping them alive. Yeah.
You're going to do what you're going to do to stay alive. So, I mean, that's, yeah. Anyway, can we go back to the map, Lee? Eating a frozen mammoth, yeah. So
the Tsar actually served it at his table, more than 100 years ago. 120
Oh, really?
years ago. They served mammoth to guests, yes. They cooked it and served it.
Goodness. Well, I mean, I guess it's going to be in a deep freeze, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. First point here, Lee. Lee, are you there?
Yeah.
Okay. Right. I found this. There's a whole lot going on here. I've never seen one of these before. Do you want to give your learned expertise on what we're seeing here?
That is a guide tower. It's a heavy duty tower, and it's full of microwave and cellular. You got microwave all the way down. It's also tied in through satellite. You can see the dishes on the sides here, satellite communications. So that's a big time tower transmitter. It's a key site.
Yeah, you said cellular's tied into it, but I don't see a town anywhere nearby. I mean, there's really nothing.
Well, you got this over here.
There's a small area there, but yeah. I mean, there's other areas.
That's the tower for
cell
everything.
Towers.
That's the tower for everything. That's
for everything. That's the whole region then.
Yeah, that's I don't see any others.
Okay.
Yeah, they got one and they put it all there. So that's the TV station, the radio station, the microwave links for the cellular. They just put it all on one.
Literally
tower.
A one-stop shop. They've done everything there. Okay. All right.
All right, you want to go to the next one?
Yes, sir. Let's go to the next point. That's not where the next point was, but that's okay.
Oh, no, wait a minute.
We can go here.
So sorry. I got to do it.
Yeah, this way. A lot faster this way. To the left here, you're going to see a very large over-the-horizon radar.
Yes. And the operator, they don't even let him park his car inside.
No. Why is that? Why can't he park inside?
It's so top secret. It's such a high restricted area that they make him park his car outside.
Okay.
That shows the importance of the site and how tight the security is, that it's a fence all the way around and he's parking outside. Are these?
That looks like another. Or am I mistaken? Is that another over the horizon radar to the right of that?
That's what I'm
Or
looking
am I
at.
mistaken?
That's that. No, that's a radar.
That is a radar. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, look at the shadow of it and the ramp that they've got it going up on to sit on top of the hill
Uh-huh.
to get them more height.
Uh-huh. I'm glad you brought that up. We're going to take a look at another site that's not listed here, but we've got some updated imagery on one of the very first sites we took a look at, just north of Brest. We're going to go there at the end.
Okay.
But instead, we're going to continue on. So, point 3. This is the airfield just north, and we've got MiG-31s on the runway.
Yeah.
And they've been doing some updating to this this airfield as well. You can see it on the down here on the south end of it.
Yeah,
Got
they
new
got a
concrete mix coming in.
Yep.
And on the other side of the terminal, you'll see it too. They're putting more upgrades in.
I like the roof.
Yeah, well, we like the orange roofs, don't we?
Yeah.
Orange, blue, and green. We like those the most.
Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, I actually have a 3D map of this airfield.
Probably, yeah. And you're going to have a 3D map of the next one, I'm sure, too.
Sorry, I got to snoop.
No, it's okay. No, the idea is to snoop. That's the idea here.
So this would be an Air Defense Forces base here.
Yes, this with they got 13 MiGs here, and I don't know what else they've got in the hangars, but yeah, this will be your intercept and your strike aircraft.
These are for intercepting intruders that are going for the deep territory inside here.
Yeah, and then the next one, if we go to the next point here, we're going to be taking a look at. Zoom out. Here we're going to have nuclear weapon storage, and you can tell by all the fences that you got in there. There's 6, 7 fences in here,
Yep.
and you see
And
all the cars
everybody's
that are parked
outside.
Yep.
They're doing
And
more
the
than
reason-
storage.
What do you mean?
That's too many cars for storage. Storage, I
well,
would expect
there's-
10 or 12 cars.
Okay. Well, is it possible that they could be further down the road? Some people could be working further down the road at the other storage facility. See right here.
No, they have their own
No.
parking lot.
No, they've got their own parking lot. Okay, fair enough.
Something else is going on here. That's too many cars.
Okay, well, I wasn't looking at that. I was looking at what they've actually got there.
Yeah,
So,
but I'm just
that's fair
saying
enough.
that's too many cars for storage. You don't need that many guys in a warehouse, and you don't move nukes all day. So they're doing something here other than just storage. There's a facility in here. There's an intelligence facility. There's something here. That's a hell of a fucking bunker right there. Look at the doors on that
It
bitch.
is. It is. That's a solid concrete building.
Wow.
They got
Yeah.
2 of them.
Yeah, they got something going on here. There's more.
Is that, go back to that. Go back to that. Is that the double fence to get into that?
Yes.
Wow.
There's
I wonder if that's is that a drive-in entrance? Is that what that is?
Yeah, but it's. I got to request a higher res image of this.
Okay.
You drive in under this. This is a concrete roof. That's a
Yes.
concrete roof. There's the shadow of it. There's an underground bunker here.
Yeah, you can see the
A concrete
underground.
roof that's flat in a place that snows a lot, that's got to be really reinforced and has to be very strong.
Yeah, it's concrete.
Yeah, for that to be, because
Yeah.
you're gonna get a huge amount of snow on that in the winter, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
There's something. This is more than storage. This
Is there an ICBM regiment
that's
nearby?
what
Yes. Well, no. Well, not kind of. There's a bomber base nearby,
Hmm.
and we're going to be looking at that.
yeah,
I mean,
we got to
there could
do
be-
more.
There could be nuclear missiles around here somewhere that they're.
Well, they're going to be here.
resurfacing.
Yeah, they're going to be here.
Yeah, but there's
Mm-hmm.
more to this. Unless this holds a huge amount, well, then how do they get the bombs out of here?
Okay. Well, take a look. Right, we're going to follow the road down, and then we're going to go to the east, and this is going to take us to here.
Okay.
Now, take a look at what we got here,
Yeah.
and then take a look at what we got on the runway, or on
Yeah.
the taxiway, whatever.
Okay. See,
got
that
6.
is their storage. That's their nuclear storage. So those are readies. That's this. What airfield is this?
I don't have a name on it at the moment. Give me a second.
Is this a strategic bomber base?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it looked like strategic bombers there on
Those
the
are
runway.
Tu-22Ms here.
Oh,
Oh,
I know
yeah,
what
yeah.
airfield this is. It's already been hit.
Yeah, this has already been hit. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know, there was some funny markings on the ground that looked like, I was wondering about that.
Yeah. Yeah. This has already been hit. This.
And then they've got.
Yeah, I
6
flew this in the
Tu-160s that are here.
simulator. There's a little. Yep. I flew this in the simulator. I came in from down here. They hit planes all over the place up here.
You can't see that one. It's got tires on it.
Yeah. Right there. Yeah, they blew the hell out of this place. This is Ingalls or something. I can't remember what the name of it is.
No, this is not Ingalls. This is out. I can't remember the name.
Ingalls
of this
is
place,
in
but-
Russia, not Siberia.
Yeah, it's but
Yeah,
it's,
this is-
they hit it at the same time they were hitting Ingalls. I can't.
Ingalls, I don't think when they used the drones, they hit Ingalls a number of times, but those big drone strikes, I think Ingalls was the one base they didn't hit.
I wonder how long it takes them to realize that we can't tell the difference between a painted airplane on the tarmac and a real airplane on the tarmac. I mean,
Well, probably about the same time they figure out the tires.
yeah.
But their World War II manuals tell them to do that. Because they still think they're fighting the Wehrmacht
Yes, that's true. They do.
with its recon planes and its black and white photographs.
This airfield is called Belaya.
Belaya, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've moved a bunch of stuff over here to protect it, but it hasn't worked out so well for them.
No. So they got a whole armload of bear bombers. They've got MiGs here.
They
They've
got a shitload of
Tu-22s here.
surface-to-air missiles. Look at that.
They do, yeah.
And the reason that's in the middle of Siberia, away from everything, is it's protected. That's gets the most warning to get into the air is if you're there, if you're in that inland position. That
Yes,
is-
and you're
Except
you're
for
gonna
they
see how
didn't
they
know
get that
about drones when they sighted it. They didn't know there was going to be people driving lorries with drones in them that could open up and unleash the drones from the local highway.
Well, that's well equipped.
Oh yeah, it's very well equipped, and pretty much everything here, with the exception of the MiGs, I think. So all the Tupolev aircraft that you see here, so the Tu-95s, the Tu-22Ms, and the Tu-160s, everything here can hit Alaska, pretty much.
Wow. All right, next one.
Next one. And the reason they're going to know, let me see, we've already looked at this.
Actually, no, we just
scrolled
glanced
past
at it. I didn't dig through it. New, that's new. This is new.
Yes,
This is new.
some of these are new, yeah.
More of those missiles. It looks like a Nike missile. Is that an SA-1?
It's no, I think it's a KH-22. I think these
They
are a
got
variant of
them
the kitchens.
sitting all over the place over here.
Yeah, I think those are variants of the kitchens.
Wow.
Because there's only 2 aircraft that can carry those, or excuse me, is it 3 aircraft that can carry those? The Tu-160s, the Tu-95s, and the Tu-22Ms. The Tu-22Ms carry them pretty well. So they use those, and of course that airfield's full of them.
So is this yard? They're up here. They're
Yeah.
over here. There's another one. Okay, next spot is number 6. Is this distributed fuel mainly? Yeah. No, that's the hell is it? Oh, there's bunkers.
This is distributed fuel, but they've put camo nets over top of it.
Okay.
And I'm assuming they've done this, and of course that's underground.
Right.
But I'm assuming that they've done this because
Of drones.
Because of the drones,
Yeah.
because of the Ukrainians.
Yeah, I see the netting here now.
Yeah. So they've added all this.
All right, next one.
All right, number 6.
Yep, we did the airfield.
Number 7. All right, yeah, we've already done that. Number 8. The reason they're going to know that you're coming is because of this.
Wow.
This is your early warning radar system for the area. And you see which way it's pointed.
Yeah. Wow. That's massive, man.
Yeah. So this is another one of those. You want me to do all the early warning sites?
Yeah.
And we're going to look at a couple others while we're at it. But I think it's part of the slideshow. But this is one of those points.
Crazy.
Yeah, this is one of the newer ones. They've been in the process of either discontinuing their old system and putting the new stuff up, but this is one of the newer facilities. Right next, this is well, it's pretty self-explanatory, isn't it?
No doubt.
This is a massive motor pool,
and people say the Russians don't have any vehicles.
well, that's not true, obviously. And I'd like to point out, as per the Russian way of doing things, some of these buildings are new. You can see clearly that a lot of those buildings that have been put in there are new. They got shiny new roofs on them. And, you know, the Russians, well, if anybody knows how to do a roof, it's the Russians. But if you go by how they do things when it comes to equipment storage, if something's sitting outside, that means what?
The buildings are full.
That's right. Look at all that artillery.
But there's something else that you can look at here. Okay. These vehicles aren't in storage.
How do you mean?
Because they're not in a storage formation. Do you see how they are parked at an angle?
Yeah, which would indicate that that you see each one of those, each one of the areas that they're in.
Yeah.
So they're fenced in. Each area is fenced in.
Right.
And it looks like they're ready to be moved out.
Exactly. See how they're all parked at an angle and they've got walking space between them?
Uh-huh.
That's ready to be deployed.
That's a good point. That's a really good point.
Russians don't park like this unless it's ready to be deployed, because this takes up more space.
Yeah. Are you seeing this, Jeff?
This is, this is what storage would look like right here. Parked at an angle like this? No. Same thing with all this up here. That's the first thing I noticed when I got here was when I started looking at this, every single one of these is spaced so you can pull any vehicle out at any time. They're all ready. Even down here, look at the guns. Look at the artillery. They've got it so the truck can pull through and grab it, pull through and grab it, pull through and grab it, pull through and grab it. Yeah, if you look at storage yards, they're not, even in Kaliningrad, they're not parked like that.
Yeah, that's a good point. I wasn't even paying attention to that. That's a really good point. I'll make sure to keep an eye on that going forward.
Yeah, because that's ready. That's not. And look at. Those are barracks.
Those are barracks, yes.
Wow.
Wait, zoom out. Let me see where you are. Oh, you're across the road. Yeah, okay.
So
You're
this
across
is
the rail, yeah.
home to some kind of motorized rifle division or something.
I'll
Yeah.
go through my other map and tell you what this is.
Yeah, I'll have to go. I'll have to look at it and see what it is.
All right, next one.
Right. We're going to take a look at this. This is Irkutsk. Okay, this is an SS-27 site, and I was telling you about this yesterday, Jeff. Now, what's unique about this? I want you to pay attention to the area to the south. Okay. Now, each one of these camo nets, underneath each one of them, is an intercontinental ballistic missile, a road mobile intercontinental ballistic missile.
Oh, yeah.
Now, this is what they use to mask them from our satellite views. Now, what's to note here is the fact of where each one of them are positioned.
They're outside.
The Russians, they're outside, yes. 2 of them are outside. 1 of them is inside. You notice that?
No.
Take a look at the buildings.
Right.
Now, the Russians have been testing SS-27s in these buildings that they have, in these new facilities that they've built, where the roofs open up.
Right.
Right? So if you've got 3 of them, and as they're called, the 3 sisters, right? They travel in 3s.
Right.
If you've got 1 in a firing position, that means the other 2 at forward and aft are ready to fire too, are they not?
Yeah. There's 18 right there.
Yes.
Holy shit.
These are ready to go. They're not going to drive them anywhere. They're just going
No, they're just going to
fire
erect
from
them
right
and
there.
push the button. And they're hiding them outside. So there's 18 right there ready to go. I hope you people are paying attention. I really do.
Fascinating.
So, yeah. Wow. Just wow.
Wow, man.
Okay, I guess I'll go to the next
position.
one. I've been shocked enough.
Yeah, go to the next one. Yeah, go to the next one. You'll see that they're ready here too.
Oh, wow. That's nuts.
It is.
I had no idea they had all this setting over here.
Oh, yes.
If you have 27 to 30 of these in one area, it's a missile division. It's the strategic
And-
rocket division.
Yeah,
as they
there's
like to call it.
30 of them.
Yeah, that would be a
And-
division of their strategic rocket forces, because 3 missiles, is like a company, 9 missiles is a regiment, and 30 missiles is a division. And that's how they organize them, and those are the names they call them. And of course, this is how they're organized. That's why they're in groups of 3s, and you can divide them by 3. They can round up to 10 when they get to be the larger numbers.
Now-
But when they're on patrol, I believe they will disperse them. So what I would say is that these are pretty concentrated. If a nuke lit up in the middle of these, it'd disable all of them. So in a real military, like for example, in Eastern Russia, they put their ICBM SS-27s on patrol, which means they go out and they move around. Here, they're concentrated. They haven't put them on patrol here yet. That's what I would guess from looking at this.
Each one of these that we're looking at, look at all the cars that are out there. Each one of these has 27 that I've been able to count. So each area, each storage area where they have them has about 27.
With
So
a
9
regiment
times 3.
being 9 missiles, 27 is, 9 times 3, right?
Yeah, 9 times 3.
So that's the
That's what I
3
was looking
regiments
for, yeah.
make a division when you go into old style Russian organization. So that's what you're seeing is, so if they were in patrol, they have their patrol area, which is what they're doing currently in Eastern Russia. They've got that whole military area. They've put them on patrol here. These are pretty concentrated, sitting there in one area.
I'm assuming that they've done the same thing here as what we started with. Is that right?
No. This
No,
is
what is
different.
this?
This is a broadcast tower. It's got microwaves on it. You can see sticking out. You can also see the sights on the sides. But this is a government tower. Because
How do you know that it's a government tower?
Because there's a giant concrete pad here, a giant concrete pad here, a giant concrete pad here, and a giant concrete pad here. Commercial towers normally have 3 guy wires. These government commercial towers have 4. So a normal broadcast tower only has 3 guy wires. This is designed to sustain. This is one of those towers they want to still be standing after the bomb goes off.
I see.
And I like the nice blue roof. And see the nice fence around it? They won't let your
Yes, of
car
course.
in. So this is government relay, government communications, government site, and it's tied into a satellite. There's the dish.
Lee, is there any evidence that there's any educational buildings, training buildings in this area?
We can dig through and find them. I mean, I'm
But
sure.
in the area where all those SS-27s were clustered,
Did you say training areas?
training buildings, for people to go into classrooms and stuff.
There
I think you
wasn't
said
any other-
their roofs are
Yes.
of a particular color.
Yes, there's a training facility nearby for them to, there's a driver training course for SS-27s nearby.
Okay, it could be that they're having some special driver training, and the reason that they're concentrated here is the crews have their units parked nearby, and they're driven to some kind of training because maybe they're preparing to put them on patrol, and they want to make sure they're good for their patrol areas. They know how to drive through them, not get stuck, and so on. So I'm sure it's a pretty extensive training. Maybe it's a refresher course. Maybe they're training new crews. Who knows? But it occurred to me that it doesn't really look like their normal area of being. It could be that they've brought the crews in here for some training purpose.
All right. I went to the
Maybe
next
there's
one
some
here.
Classroom courses going on.
Dude, this is a HF farm.
Yes, do you see this? I want you to zoom out, and I want you to see how big this is. This is
I
a
see.
kilometer across.
Yeah, I see. That's the antenna farm there. Look at all these poles.
You can
there?
see that
See
they've
there?
got it. Yeah, look at that. That's a kilometer across. That's how big this is.
Dude, this is a giant elephant cage. This is a miniature version of the one they're building in Kaliningrad. It goes all the way around. It's got all those poles. Look at that. See that?
That's massive.
And can you explain to our listeners what that is used for?
You can do radio direction finding with this. You can broadcast, and you can do it on multiple bands. Look at that. That is perfectly symmetry all the way around. That is, they can broadcast in any direction they want or listen in any direction they want. And then over here is going to be all your signals intelligence people that are going through what is being learned from those antennas. Exactly. Well, not Green Bank, Sugar Grove. So, yeah, that's massive. Well, now I know where they got the idea to do an elephant cage 3 kilometers across. They got 1/3 of its size right here. Yeah, that's a massive listening post right there. Look at that. All right, let's go to the next one.
Right. I'm open to interpretations on what this is. You're going to know exactly what it is, but I don't.
That's an elephant cage. That's a smaller one.
So this is
That's a standard
so
elephant
Belarusians
cage.
do these underground. This is basically we're just seeing it above ground.
It's the antenna of it. The facility is underground. That's the antenna.
I see. Okay.
This is a smaller version of the one that's over there. Now the crazy part about it is, if you use this one and the one over there and another one, you'll be able to radio direction find any HF frequency, because you'll be able to see the bearing. This is big enough that you can go 360 degrees off of this one over here and go 360 degrees off of this one, and the two bearings together will tell you where the signal's coming from.
Where they cross.
Yeah, where the two beams cross.
Broadcasting.
So yeah, this is a normal elephant cage. That over here, this one is freaking monstrous. I mean, look at that. All right, let's go to the next one.
Right. We've looked at this site before, but this is part of their early warning system.
Yeah.
This is currently being built. It's nearing completion. But this will allow them to look over into Canada.
Folks, this is from 2025. You can see right there on the lower left-hand corner, this isn't dated imagery. All of this is 6 months, a year, 2 years old. We're not looking at history here. We're looking at.
So if this is nearly finished by now, it must be finished if this
Oh, yeah.
picture's a year old.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. This is what was nearing completion when I was able to look at it.
Yeah, that's
But-
August the 9th of 2025,
Yeah.
So,
This will allow
not even
them
a year old.
from this position, they can see over into northern Canada with this, all the way over the North Pole. Here, there's not really much going on in this airfield other than the fact that they're starting to revamp it a little bit. But what caught my attention was what was on the north end of that runway right there.
And you know, Pakistan's keeping those for Iran too.
Really?
Yeah. The Iranians
know that.
flew their AWACS aircraft into Pakistan and landed them at the airfields. So the Pakistanis are hiding Iranian AWACS aircraft. But yet the
course.
U.S. still wants to use Pakistan as a negotiator.
Well, this is the same thing that Saddam Hussein, though he had been at war with Iran, he hid his Air Force. He sent his Air Force to hide in Iran, and the Iranians just kept it. They didn't give him back his planes at the beginning of the first Gulf War.
Well, we know it's in use. There's a fuel truck and there's another fuel truck. So they're filling it up. It ain't like they're emptying it out. They're using it for something. All right.
And the other one, this is part of their facility that's actually being, this is in replacement at the moment, but they're still using it. This is another part of their early warning system here. You'll notice the building on the right. This is kind of what they're upgrading their newer facilities to.
Yeah, that's
is
what
that
we've
type
got
of-
in
that type of design.
Western Kaliningrad, northwestern Kaliningrad.
That's right. That's right.
And
So
those other
what
sites.
we think is Yeah, what we think is an office building is not actually an office building. It's a radar.
Yeah, it's got multiple phased array panels on each side. So it's quite precise in what it can see. All right. Do we have any questions, folks? It's come to that time of the day.
We've got one more place to look at,
Okay.
and it's in the chat there. It wasn't part of this. I just found it this morning. So this is a site we looked at in the early goings of us getting together, and you'll remember it when you see it. This is in Belarus. Okay, you remember this place? It's got the over the horizon radars there. You thought that was a commander's house out there?
Yep. Got the radars
Yeah.
over here.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, what we have here is, if you look to the south, we have new imagery of this site that they've been building up.
Oh.
Could you please tell me what in the hell are they doing on the southwest corner? Southeast corner, sorry.
That's a radar mound. They're going to put a radar on top of that.
They've got two others.
I understand that, but they want one to see even farther. That's going to be a monster.
I saw this massive mound this morning, and I thought, what in God's name are they going to put up there?
Yep, that's going to have a radar on top of it. They got every kind of radar under God's green earth there already. Yeah, this is a massive site here.
They have, if you go back, look at all the cars that are parked out front.
Yeah.
They've been upgrading this site, the Belarusians have, for the last almost 10 years now.
Yeah, that's going to have a radar on top of it. That's what that flat
Yeah,
spot
if you go
right
back 10 years, there was nothing here.
Yeah, that's going to have a radar. It's going to be a giant radar setting on that. Probably an over-the-horizon radar. As big as that pad is. It's not big enough for a big bird, so it's not a UHF radar. The legs of a big bird would stick out too far.
Okay.
So
to give people an idea, this site we're looking at right here from this point, this is 7.5 kilometers to the Polish border.
Poland. There's the site. And there's stuff at all these others too, folks. That's not the only one. There's stuff, these other areas around here have other radars and stuff stuck on them. It ain't just this complex right here.
No, that's the barracks to the right there.
Yeah.
In the training area.
Yeah, but that other one has a big radar in its yard too.
Yeah, there's two. And there's a satellite uplink on one of them as well.
So, an SS-27 fired from Moscow over the Arctic could reach anywhere in the United States except maybe Hawaii, if I'm reading that right. Yeah, I think you're correct on that. Question: what are the power sources for these antennas, as well as computers, servers used for SIGINT? That facility would require a lot of power. Yes, it does require a lot of power, and they run generators and have grid. And the other thing they do is they run high voltage down their railroad tracks too, to make their trains run off of electricity as opposed to diesel.
The Russians also have a lot of hydroelectric that they deal into.
Yep. Other questions? Put them in the chat. Come one, come all. What could be Russia's most likely way to test NATO Article 5 in the Baltic, seizing a small island first to probe NATO's resolve or directly target the Suwalki corridor? I would, if I was going to test their resolve, I would go for a small island first, and to see what you're getting. Because if they go and jump the Milwaukee Gap and NATO gets all whipped up, Russia's going to get in for a paddling real quick.
I'd like to point out something else.
Yes, sir.
Speaking of Russia getting a paddling, Jeff, you're familiar with what's called the Hornet's Nest, the Russian naval base that's out in Kamchatka. Yes, the sub base. Yeah. Well, they've made a small change to that facility as of this morning. You see, they've added drone nets to their Borai class submarines that are out there.
The Ukrainians are going to be able to reach all the way out there, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. You see, just a small improvement. Yeah, just
Wow, drone nets. Is that really going to stop a drone from hitting that submarine?
No.
I don't think so. It doesn't look strong enough.
Do tires stop us from seeing planes on the runway?
So some bureaucrat thought of this as a measure of defense to satisfy his boss, but it's just nonsense. Is
Right.
that right?
I guess.
Drone will fly right up under the end of that.
Yeah, you could fly under it, couldn't you? The drone could
Yeah.
fly right under it and hit him. If you watch
You got gaps in here. You see this? Look at this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, if you see these Ukrainian drone pilots, have you ever seen their videos of them going after
Oh, they're
fly
precision.
trucks?
They're precision.
These guys are guiding them in. The thing is going, and it comes right up to the truck, and boom,
Yeah.
truck is gone.
I've seen them go in and they'll navigate inside of a bombed out building. The Ukrainians will.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's
And-
for the
and
smaller
they'll just-
drones. Yeah.
There'll be a Russian soldier hiding like 2 floors down behind a stairwell somewhere, and they'll find him.
You know, because the Ukrainians now have ships. They have things that can go to sea.
Mhm.
So they could pop up with a bunch of drones in the Pacific and start attacking this place. Yeah. No, they're trying to get ready, but it looks like government work to me. Yeah, it's pretty funny.
Wonton, that takes me out in the middle of the ocean, buddy. That's not a good address. Oh no, wait a minute. It's my fault. I didn't copy all of it. Never mind.
Lee, were you aware of the fact that the NATO war games that are going on right now had to be stopped 3 times yesterday?
No, I was not.
They had to be stopped. Yeah, they had to be stopped because the Ukrainians were absolutely annihilating the NATO forces.
Oh yes. NATO, Ukraine kicked their fucking ass.
Yes, they did.
NATO's not any more ready for this drone warfare than the Russians are.
Yeah.
Wonton wanted us to
off
take a
screen.
look at this to see what storage place this was. This is in the middle of the area we're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
It's got 3 fences. Hell, it's even subdivided.
It's got a railhead
Bombs.
going into it.
It's bombs.
See that?
Yeah, yep, and a railway. Yeah, it's bombs.
I was looking at this, and I'll tell you why. I was looking at this earlier, and the reason I dismissed it is because if you follow the rail lines out, it looks like a mining or construction site, and I'm betting that's where they keep their explosives.
Oh,
That's why I ignored it.
yep, you're probably right, because it's not going anywhere else.
You don't want to keep your explosives right next to where you answer
Right.
the office phone.
Yeah.
So,
Yep, that's what it is. It's explosives. I didn't realize there was a mine over there.
yeah,
was wondering why the
that's why
revetments
I saw
didn't
that
look any
site, but
better.
that's why I ignored it.
Yeah, I was wondering why the revetments didn't look any better. So yeah, it's just explosives for a mine. All right, let's see here.
Lee, if you want to, if you want to take a look at a site that's actually, I found it recently when I was going through some stuff. But if you want to take a look, this is a site that's been upgraded. in as many months. This is more of your military kind of site.
All right.
This puts the one in Kaliningrad to shame.
Oh, wow. Holy mackerel.
Yeah, you got new buildings here to the left. You got this new complex. This is new.
I need to see where this is.
This is just out. This is northeast of what's that city? Yekaterinburg.
Yeah, that's massive.
Yes.
That is massive. This is the facility just to manage it.
Yeah. You can see they've actually, if you look, go to the northwest corner and go south just a little bit and go left. You're going to see, once you jump outside of the facility, go left. Yeah. Look there. Straight down. And then, yeah, right there. They've got pop-up barracks right here.
Yep. So is that.
Yeah, and I also think that they've got, I don't know what they've got going on. You see that building to the south right there? It's not a building. It looks more like a cover. Yeah.
It is a cover.
They've got three of they got three of these, which means they got something temporary stashed under there, and I don't know what it is.
Wow.
So,
okay, get to the questions.
That's your military.
Any
your
update
military
on
bunker
Cuba?
right there.
Yeah, the U.S. is getting ready to go hit there. Proof of that, look at the number. Oops, it's this one. Look at the number of flights that we've had. Black Cat 6 was just there yesterday, and they're there again. They've had, this is now 27 flights in 90 days, and here in the last 30 days, they've been coming almost back to back. Okay, what do you think the main purpose of Trump's trip with all these business people? It's to entice the Chinese to do business with the U.S. What say you guys?
He wants like $1 trillion investment or some such thing from the Chinese. And so I suspect he's trying to leverage them in a way that's going to help him end the war in Iran. By opening up possibilities for them to get into our markets.
All right.
We have been doing everything to try and kick them out of our markets. We don't need to let them back in.
Yeah, some of us have been trying to get them out of our markets, but this would be a catastrophe for us because we need to disengage slowly but gradually. We don't want to be tied to the belly button with these people. They're our enemy. They will use their condition of trading with us and investing in us to basically appropriate us, digest us, metabolize us.
You know, I think it's interesting. I've been watching the propaganda sides of both Russia and China to the English world on these visits, and now you've got Putin saying that he wants dialogue with the EU. He was asking for Schroeder last week. Now he's asking for Merkel. Kind of thing. And then now you've got Xi and the Chinese government saying that, well, you see, we're trying to cut a deal with the United States, and Russia's really not a voice for being on the geopolitical stage any longer. That was the headline this morning out of the Chinese.
But if you talk to one of our Air Force generals, like General Van Herk, who's retired from being head of NORAD, the Russians are more advanced than the Chinese in all kinds of areas of strategic weapons. So it is still primarily Russia is the primary threat to the United States, not China. The idea that China is a junior partner is a bit of a misunderstanding. China has its weaknesses too. We just haven't seen China stumble and fall. They're very careful about not losing face.
All right, next question. The current world leaders, do they need to die before concluding these world wars, or is a death of a leader to be more likely to end the war? It depends upon the country and the leader. What say you, gentlemen? Jeff?
Why would leaders dying end a war? We have a lot of history of wars, long wars, and leaders dying did not end those wars. The Peloponnesian War didn't die when Pericles died. It didn't end when Pericles died, the Athenian leader. So I don't quite understand that. Roosevelt died in April of 1945, and it didn't end the war. The war ended when Hitler committed suicide, and a few days later, his successor agreed to surrender unconditionally. So no, it's not about leaders dying. It's about being unable to continue a war or not finding it useful and giving in to the other side. So there will be continuity in governments and when leaders die, and continuity in wars.
Also, if a leader dies and the new one that takes over, if the person is a complete moron when it comes to management of resources and logistics, then that war is going to end on its own, isn't it? So, I mean, if you've got terrible command structure, then you're not really going to have too much of a successful war, are you?
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's, and see, because wars are waged by nations, not individual leaders. Individual leaders are symbols. They represent their country in a way, whether they're kings or presidents or generals or dictators, whatever they are. It doesn't end a war. And then sometimes when leaders die, a war begins because people think the death of a leader means they can get away with something. This is what happened in the Bar Kokhba rebellion of the Jews against the Roman Empire. It was the death of Trajan and the ascension of Hadrian that began the war. So, no, I don't think you have to kill leaders or leaders are going to die to end a war. The war ends in its good time. There's an internal logic to conflict that is resolved through the process of the breakdown of the military forces and the society on either side. Which breaks first? It's a question of morale. Which side loses the will to continue first?
Got another question for you, Jeff. Are you familiar with Bishop Fulton Sheen and Bella Dodd and her work prior to her conversion?
Yeah, she was a lawyer. She worked with the communists. She was a communist. She worked with educators in the communist movement, especially, I think, there were a lot of communists in the teachers' unions in like New York and New Jersey. The legislatures in New York and New Jersey started investigating, I think in late 39, early 1940, the communist infiltration of elementary schools, believe it or not, in the teaching area. And they had some major investigations. She was active as a lawyer in helping to defend the communists. I think they ended up firing a lot of communists. But when World War II began in December 1941, all these investigations stopped because Stalin became our ally. And but Bella Dodd converted back to Catholicism. Her family was from Italy. If I recall, I think she was born in Italy and immigrated when she was a child if I'm remembering correctly. But yes, she wrote a book, which I can't remember the title of, which I read some years ago. And there's a new book out about her biography that I also read. That was 2-3 years ago too. A very outstanding person, by the way, who understood the communist movement from having been a major player in it here in the United States.
The next one is, where to go? The White House has canceled 5,000 U.S. Army troops deployed to Poland recently. Any comment? I'm not liking what I'm seeing in a lot of different ways. Jeff?
Yeah, go ahead.
They said they canceled the troop. What do they mean they canceled them?
Okay, so I heard about this morning or this afternoon. So we were set to be reinforcing NATO's eastern flank, the U.S. was. Mm-hmm. So we had new deployments coming up. We had some reshuffles we were going to be doing in the EU. But we've now canceled the deployment of the Army's 2nd Brigade Combat Team, the 1st Cavalry Division to Europe, and we're now taking 4,000 troops that would have been reinforcing NATO's eastern flank, and they've been told to be prepared to depart back to the U.S.
Yeah, because there was this talk about moving the troops that were in Germany into Poland, and so now that's not going to happen. So they're just going to take the troops back to the United States. Yeah.
Well, we're not only pulling the troops. These are troops that were already deployed in Poland. So these were not connected to the Germany deployments. So we're pulling the Germany deployments. Now we're pulling the Polish deployments.
Yeah. But I mean, originally they were saying like a year ago they were going to move troops into Poland from Germany.
Yes.
But none of that apparently is going to happen. Yeah. It's part of the Trump administration's, winking at Russia and doing things like this to help the Russians.
Yeah. Have you guys caught the drone attacks by Russia into Ukraine in the last 24 hours? The drone cruise missiles, have you seen where they've been hitting?
They've been hitting the most western part of Ukraine.
Look at this.
Yeah, they're going out to western. Yeah, they're going out to the west. I made this comment before on another podcast that the Germans made this agreement with Ukraine to jointly produce drones that had a 1,500 kilometer range. And this, I think, is Russia's reaction to that news by striking in the further western part of Ukraine is a signal to the Germans that they're not going to accept this. That they can even move their drone strikes could even go further to the west.
This was it 2 nights ago.
So the next question is, will America start attacks on Iran after Trump returns, and will China move on Taiwan? I don't think China's going to move on Taiwan right away, but I think the U.S. will attack Iran as well as attack Cuba after Trump comes back from China. What say you, gentlemen?
I agree with the attacks on Cuba I don't know necessarily what we're going to do with Cuba yet, but I agree with the resumption of attacks on Iran. I think that's coming because they don't know what else to do with it. And I think, and I would like for Jeff to actually comment on it, but this is going to have, with the Iran thing, we're stuck, we're bogged down in this. And with the Strait of Hormuz, this is going to cause a serious economic problem in a very short period of time. And as far as the Taiwan thing goes, again, referencing General Chiao Chen's speech, they're making it Taiwan, 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 but it's not. It's about America.
No, they'll absorb Taiwan after they've accomplished their goals against the United States. I don't know what Trump is going to do with Iran. He has dawdled now. He has done very little for the better part of several weeks now. And the Iranians are recovering their capability, their missile launching, their launchers, their ability to respond. I mean, this is not, they're recovering their position, and they're becoming more able to block the Strait of Hormuz. You notice the little Liberty mission to prove they could escort ships through. They didn't repeat that, that I heard. You know, it's like, why not? Are we being given the full story there? As far as Cuba goes, I know that Trump has told President Lula da Silva of Brazil that he's not going to invade Cuba, so don't worry. So if he's going to attack Cuba without invading it, it's like you have a hornet's nest in your backyard and you're going to put on your bathing suit and go out there with a stick and start beating on it. You're going to get covered.
Which is what we did with Iran.
Which is what we did with Iran. So it looks like Russia, looks like Putin. It looks like Putin and Xi. And by the way, Putin is running to China he's going to meet with Xi after the meeting with Trump. So it's like they're going to have their little secret meeting. Trump is doing all these stupid moves that basically are strengthening the Russian, Iranian, Chinese position, I think. And if he stirs a hornet's nest in Cuba, which will affect all of Latin America, but especially the Gulf of Mexico, which Trump calls the Gulf of America. Did they really change that on maps?
Google did, yeah.
Yep.
Google did.
It's on all my maps.
That is, I can't, I was raised, I don't know if
it's going to be the Strait of Trump, don't you know?
Cuba, if you don't invade it and take it, it's an unsinkable aircraft carrier from which drones and missiles and other things can be launched. And you basically will have the same problem with oil coming out of Texas on tankers that you would have in the Strait of Hormuz. Tankers will no longer be able to navigate around the island of Cuba if he does this. So I don't understand what he's doing. I don't.
As of this morning, Cuba has officially run out of diesel and fuel oil. As of this morning.
Yeah, for their civilian population who live miserably.
Yeah.
I think there's this theory that there could be an overthrowing of the government there. And, blockades, by the way, severe blockade of Cuba, which, of course, they allowed this Russian ship to offload a large amount of oil here a few weeks back. It doesn't really make much sense. If you're going to have a blockade, you absolutely blockade them. But you can intensive blockades where you can shut a country off, that can lead to a revolution in a country. This is what happened to Germany at the end of World War I. But it didn't happen. The blockade didn't do that in World War II. And when you have a totalitarian regime with an efficient police system, it's doubtful that it will work. So it's an interesting idea, but I wouldn't give it that much credit.
All right, the next one is everyone is doing Lego wars. I'm not familiar with that. Now, for propaganda, it seems to be very effective. What is Jeff's take on this? Jeff, are you a Lego wars expert?
What does he mean by Lego wars?
I have no idea.
He means that he's talking about the war in Ukraine and the war in the Middle East and the threats in the Far East and the Caribbean. That's what he's talking about?
I don't know. I think it's propaganda, Lego cartoons or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
Question.
I don't know what he means by that, but there is, I think, an intention by Russia and China, and this comes from the defector literature. They call it one clenched fist, where they turn the strategic balance around, and then they can threaten and break up the Western alliance and threaten our allies. And it looks like that the threats are going to be economic. Because of the Strait of Hormuz thing, appears that this is the big misstep. And of course, drones and invading the Baltic states may be, successfully making a wedge between the United States and Europe, and to break up NATO, to separate Japan from the United States. A lot of people don't realize China's been begging Japan to split with the United States. They've done this with Australia for more than a decade. They've said, "Oh, don't you know? Australia, where your bread is buttered, you need to be with China. You shouldn't be with the Americans.
Russians have been saying that too,
Yeah, yeah.
that they need to
And
break with the U.S.
this is they want to isolate us from these allies. And what's interesting is how Trump is accommodating that kind of policy. He's falling in with it, whether consciously or unconsciously. I mean, how come he's doing this all over the map? And it's got to be to some degree conscious. Yeah.
You want to stir the pot. If you're Trump, you want to stir the pot. Don't go to China. Refuse the invitation to go to Beijing. Instead, go to Taipei and go to Tokyo.
Yeah, that's what should be happening. We should be, as they're drawing together in their alliance, they announced before the invasion of Ukraine, of course, Putin went to Beijing when those Olympics were just getting started in the Winter Olympics in 2022. And they announced the strongest military alliance or combination since World War II. This was the friendship that existed, the partnership that existed. They call it an unlimited partnership. And I think the real problem is that the defectors with information out of China and Russia, like Colonel Stanislav Lunev, who spoke fluent Mandarin and worked in for the Russian General Staff, they were warning our intelligence services about a secret agreement for a future war against America, where they really want to disband NATO before they come after us. So, I think this war in Ukraine, they've had a major stumble at the beginning, but they very artfully used the war in Ukraine for sandbagging, because we're looking at all this Russian military capability, and none of it is being applied against Ukraine. They're taking the poorest quality troops they can and getting these people killed in Ukraine while they're husbanding more advanced weapons. They're building an army based on drones and AI, and they're getting that machine well warmed up. And the Chinese are learning this game too, and the Iranians. So I think meanwhile, we sit back and we think, the Ukrainians have beaten them. But I think there's a much larger thing going on where a larger war preparation is being considered. Now, whether their economies of Russia and China can bear the burden of their strategy, I don't know. They're hoping that our economies are going to collapse before theirs do. And that's a question. I think it's really technical. I'm not sure how to read it. The normal economic reading would be that whatever happens here, it's going to be worse in China and Russia. If our economy caves in, theirs are definitely going to cave in.
Johnny, anything you want to add?
To the economic point, the Russian and the Chinese systems. The Russian system is, I would think that it's a little bit better off than the Chinese system at the moment. The Chinese banking system is a disaster. Their real estate market is an even bigger mess because of all this malinvestment that they've put into it. The Russians are in the process of centralizing everything. So they're shutting the internet off. They're trying to consolidate the telecom industry. They're shutting down small businesses through all of this regulatory measures they're taking to restrict businesses by not processing payments and not allowing people to work within that market economy. So I think, as you just put it, with the economic side of things, I think they're in a real bad way here. So
China is dependent on imports, and Russia basically exports. Russia's so big, they call it the Russian world. It's a world unto itself. It's such a big country. It has all the natural resources it needs. And so it could be more autarkic in principle than other countries. So Russia is not as vulnerable to what other countries do economically as China is. And right now, Russia is holding firm by selling off its gold reserve to keep the war going. And so Russia has resources to keep going. China, however, because of its dependence on trade and its large developed trading system, this is why they're being careful and haven't joined in any fighting yet.
Also oil. The Chinese don't have
their
any oil.
vulnerability is to oil. And of course, I don't know if they're only getting oil from Russia and they're not able to get anything from the Middle East, how long their reserves would last.
Right now, they're having trouble with their Strait of Hormuz exports. getting that exported out of there
Yeah.
and imported into China. So they're having trouble there. However, one place they're not having trouble is in Sudan. So they control South Sudan, the Chinese do. They basically just knocked that place over.
Yeah.
And then of course Wagner's in there with the Russians, their
Yeah.
private military
There's a lot of
companies. They help
Chinese
do that.
in Sudan, by the way. Construction workers who are
Yes.
People's Liberation Army reservists, by the way.
That's right.
There's a lot of that going on in Africa, in different countries.
But they've pretty much, the Chinese have gone in and they've rebuilt the port of Sudan, so on the Red Sea. So they've pretty much taken over that whole thing. And I showed you the oil terminal that they've got in the port of Sudan. And they've also spent time. Let me just pull this up on the map here because it's just that relevant as we're talking about it because of their oil imports. But they've gone in. They've spent time rebuilding the port in Sudan. They've spent time shoring up their position in northern Sudan. I know the country's split, but nonetheless, they've been able to get a deep water port that's operational for them. And of course, the strait that's down to the south of the Red Sea opening, let me come over here. Lee, do you want to make this a little larger, please? So if we come over here and we take a look, this is the port of Sudan. And this is the oil terminal that the Chinese have built. As you can see, there's a Chinese ship in there now, loading up. This is their deep water port. You see they've dredged all this out. They've cut all this out. You see this? You see how you know that's a dredging operation. That's not natural. So the Chinese have come in there and they've cut all that out. So what they'll do is they'll come down here to this strait. This is the Bab al-Mandab Strait. This is Yemen over here. And of course, the Houthis are pretty much bankrolled by, obviously, the IRGC, Hezbollah, a partner with Hamas, and the Chinese. The Chinese have been using the Houthis down here to attack ships, cargo ships, and things that go through here for the last few years, trying to disrupt global maritime operations, which would send all the traffic that would normally go through there down around the Cape of Good Hope. So you'd have to go all the way around instead of going up through the Red Sea and into the Suez. But the Chinese ships, they've been left alone. The Russian ships, they've been left alone. So the Chinese will come here to the port of Sudan. They'll fill up their tankers. They'll come out and they'll go across the Indian Ocean through the Bay of Bengal. And then they'll come over here where the Chinese have built a deep water port and an oil terminal in Myanmar. And from here, this is in Rangoon, and from here, this place has put in a pipeline that will go all the way to China. So you see, they've cut down the transit operation. They would have to stop from going through the Malaccan Strait. They don't need to go that way anymore. They don't need to come out here where they've built all these islands and all these atolls through the South China Sea. They don't need to come out all the way around in Indonesia and Cambodia and Vietnam and all that. They don't have to do that anymore. So they can just come over here to this terminal and offload here.
I should note in perspective, Sudan only supplies China with about 7% of its oil.
Yeah.
And it's thought that China has a 120-day stockpile of oil, but I think that's if they're getting no exports. So I think that China could probably go 3 to 5 months. If they do some rationing, they could probably get by that length of time. It's hard to say. And there's also reports that some Chinese ships are still loading at Carg Island, and our Navy is letting them through. I don't know if you've heard that, Lee. Have you heard that, Johnny?
We've
I have
let
not,
several vessels through, including Chinese.
Yeah, I
So-
think the Chinese may be getting more oil from the Middle East than we realize from Iran, because there's this fear that we're going to make China mad at us, and
Yeah.
Trump wants to deal with China. It's these cross deals. I wish I was a fly in the wall in the room to hear it, but it's this kind of dealing is quite foul because China and Iran are economically interdependent. So bombing Iran and giving to China with the other hand is sort of, in a way, giving to Iran. So it makes, there's no consistency here. There's no coherency in the policy.
All right, got
Shall I
another
give you some
question here.
Consistency with China? Can I give you consistency with China?
Sure.
No deal.
No
End of
deal,
story.
yeah.
No deal.
No, I mean, look, these countries are preparing to do us in. They want to, their
That's right.
leaders want to destroy
That's
the
right.
United States as a power, and we're going to somehow make them into partners?
Nope. No deal.
That's not going to work.
And I'd like to point out to your earlier comment, we were talking about economics and things, and of course we got the grand solar minimum stuff that we're getting ready to go into, and then the economic problem we've got with the Strait of Hormuz. This is what Anatoly Golitsyn talked about in New Lies for Old: grain and oil.
Yes.
This is going to be the weapons of the bloc.
Economic weapons
Yep.
of the bloc, grain and oil.
Yep.
Yes, those are Golitsyn's words.
And that's exactly what's being used.
Yeah, we're gonna see. There's gonna be massive grain shortages because oil and grain are connected. This is what people haven't realized because of petrochemicals and the fact that we've exhausted the soil in much of the world. And of course, I think we've mentioned here before that China is trying to systematically choke India off of chemical fertilizers.
Yeah.
The U.S. is
really
hurting right
and
now.
oil.
It's
Yeah.
a soft blockade. So India is being affected by this. It's, the interplay, it's almost like a game of chicken that China and Iran are playing with the U.S. and India and of course, Japan and the other countries dependent on the Middle East oil. There has to be a larger strategy because, of course, Iran's strategy has been to cut off the Strait of Hormuz in this situation. For decades, this has been their strategy. The Chinese, knowing this, must have prepared in some way. This is why they've been, hoarding oil in the reserves for the last several years. I think they have a larger reserve than the open source literature claims. But we'll see.
2.1 billion barrels is what they keep in reserve, strategic reserve, reportedly.
That's supposedly enough for 120 days. But I think also, how much can Russia get out through the Arctic and through the new oil transport routes that Russia is setting up to China? So how much of that can be made up? And if you've got a large oil reserve, maybe you're draining it so slowly you could go a whole year. In that case, you can, if you're a socialist type market economy, you can maybe get through it where a regular consumer economy couldn't.
All right, next question says, I am a German citizen. We know who they are. Is there anything anyone in the world would want in or from Germany that would want a war against Germany?
Yes.
They want German technology.
That's right. They want
more
German
than that,
innovation. Yeah.
Germany's in the center of Europe, and the Russians have always regarded Germany as the key. If they can form a kind of alliance with Germany or draw Germany closer to Russia, they could dominate Europe. Because Germany is economically dominant country in Europe, at least it has been. Of course, it's undergone a kind of deindustrialization from the high energy prices. But I think Russia could provide the energy, to make Germany more prosperous and to have some kind of partnership there. There's always been, you've got this idea that goes back to Bismarck of Russian-German alliance. And that then reemerged after World War I, between Germany and the Soviet Union, their trade, their military cooperation, especially their secret military cooperation. So, yeah, there's this idea of Germany being a key partner if Germany could be won over to the Russian side.
But it's a deception.
The Russians don't have equal partners.
Absolutely not. No.
In Europe, at least, they don't want.
Yeah, you're going to end up, what you'll end up with is you'll end up with the DDR, but the entire country. That's what you'll end up with.
Yeah, and the DDR, to some extent, is still there.
Yes.
You know,
The
you've
Stasi
got
networks are still
you've
there.
got people who still believe in that in Germany.
The Stasi networks are still there.
Yeah.
They're still there. They're
Yeah.
still meeting saying, oh, don't worry. The Russians
I
are, everybody's
forget
coming
what,
back. Yeah,
a
it's all fine.
huge, I think it was something like 80% of school teachers in East Germany ratted on, were spying for the Stasi on the students and their families. You know, I mean, the amount of people, the number of people who worked for the regime, you know, every single family had somebody in there willing to turn in a family member, you know. There's a movie about this, The Lives of Others, that was made about it. That was pretty good. But it, yeah. No, I don't, you know, what do they want Germany for? Germany's only the most important country in Europe economically.
Yeah. And when it comes to technological innovation and
Yeah.
advancement, you know, this concept that the Germans have now jumped in on the Ukrainian side, this is a disaster for Russia.
Hmm.
This is horrible. They don't want this at all.
No, they don't want it.
Okay, the next one. Do you see any circumstances where Trump would pressure Putin to end the war in Ukraine? My answer, no.
He's had plenty of
Absolutely
chances to pressure them, and all the things that were adopted here at the end of summer or early fall, they turned out to be nothing burgers, and everything has been undone. So I don't, you know, Trump seems to be more on board with Russia and China every day. It seems that it's clearer that he's willing to bend to them, to work with them.
Okay, the next one
Pete Hegseth
is
was, hold on a second. Pete Hegseth was on the Hill 2 days ago, and he was being asked about this deal with Russia, you know, this relationship with Russia. And he says, look, we know that Russia's a nefarious actor. And the Congresswoman stopped him from saying any more. And she said, well, that's not true, because everything that you're doing in the administration, you're removing the sanctions that are being put on them. So you put sanctions on our enemies, and you keep them there.
And
There should be. Why do we not have a 500% tariff on China and Russia?
I mean, the sanctions
Sorry.
were against specific oil companies that they could move. They've got other oil companies they could move the oil through. So I just I didn't understand what they were doing. It just wasn't understandable to me.
But the sanctions go on, and then Treasury takes them off 2 days later.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing they've done. I mean, he waited, he hemmed, he hawed. Oh, we'll give them 10 days. Oh, we'll give them 3 months. Oh, no, I met him in Alaska. Now we're going to do something different. I mean, no, he's not serious about putting pressure on Russia.
okay. Is Trump lying to the Chinese when he says he wants to rebuild their relationship? Is that to buy time before the conflict over Taiwan? No, I think Trump thinks he can solve the world's problems by doing business deals. And, well, some problems can't be resolved with business deals. What say you, gentlemen? Jeff?
You don't want to make business partners with murderers like the Chinese government. You know, I remember I interviewed Harry Wu, who was in the Laogai for I think 19 years. He was a very famous Chinese political prisoner who survived. And in that interview, I asked him, I said, what do you think about the Chinese leaders? And he said, murderers. Murderers. These people are mass murderers. They're the followers of Mao Zedong. They're the ones that are carrying on that legacy. Mao Zedong was the biggest mass murderer in the history of the world. Killed more Chinese, more human beings than any other human has ever killed other human beings. He was a vicious psychopath. And these people, they're in that tradition. And we're going to go into business with them. Would you personally go into business with a murderous mafia don because you had an opportunity to make some money? Or would you be putting your whole family at risk by going into business with such people? Just think about it in those terms. Personalize it. This is a disaster for us to go into business with people that are that evil.
Okay, why is Cuba going to be attacked? They're close by, don't have to fly very far. All kinds of great reasons to attack Cuba, right? Plus, we want to make sure that there's no foreign influence in our theater. What say you, Jeff?
I was interested in the comments made by Anthony Scaramucci a few days ago, where he told Vlad Vexler, the podcaster, that if you don't think Trump attacked Iran because of the Epstein files and what's in them, you don't understand anything about Trump. So I think what you have is that Trump went into Iran really to divert everyone away from the Epstein. And of course, the Epstein files have disappeared from most of the discussions in the news. Now it's all about Iran. And now, of course, he's in trouble in Iran. And now he has to find a diversion from that. So he's going to Cuba. So what he's doing is he's just finding a way to he makes this mistake. He's going to make another mistake here to cover up the first one. And he's just making a mess.
I think it started with Venezuela. We pulled off that little operation in Venezuela, and you think now that you've done something like that, you think, okay, well, we can do Iran. That's no problem. And I think that's what they thought, was they were just going to go in. They were going to do their little decapitation strike. They were going to give up. They were going to sink whatever they had. And that was going to be it.
But
that's not the case.
Theory. Trump thinks he's Napoleon. And he's developed this theory that I don't need to fight a war. I just need to kill their leaders. And like we talked about earlier, killing leaders doesn't change a regime. Because a regime isn't one person. A regime is a whole system. And when you arrested Maduro and they bent the knee to Trump, they were just pretending.
Yeah,
They'll stand
Delcy
up
Rodriguez?
and flip them the finger.
Really?
Yeah. She's a communist. Her father was the head of the communists in Venezuela back in the 70s.
Cabillo? These are bad people.
These are revolutionary communists who hate the United States and want us on our knees. The idea that they are going to cooperate with us in an honest, above-board manner is preposterous. So this whole thing, so Trump's whole theory of war, of kidnapping a leader and saying that he owns the country now, is his delusion of grandeur. Decapitating Iran. How well did that work for him? I think the Venezuelans I think they're digging underground there, and I think that missiles are going into Venezuela, and we're not going to keep track of that. I think we're going to get drones and missiles. One day they're going to be hitting Florida. They're going to be hitting New Orleans. They're going to be hitting Galveston. They're going to be hitting our oil refineries in Texas. So this is all really very bad. The fact that drones can do the things we're seeing them do now, and their range is being extended. What is the Caribbean going to be like when it finally lights up? When the Chinese have pumped it full of, there's 80,000 drones and missiles in the Caribbean controlled by the communists there. We're going to have our own Persian Gulf right here in the Gulf of America. No, Gulf of Mexico. Come on.
I actually think it's going to be worse than that, because if we're calculating the ranges right, you and I were looking at this, and I've the Shahed drones right now, the ones that the Russians are sending into Ukraine, and make no mistake, the Russians, the Chinese, they're the ones giving those drones to Iran. They've exported the manufacturing of those drones to Iran. So the idea that the Iranians are making drones, no. Where do you think they're getting the parts? Where do you think they're getting the guidance systems that go on them? No, this is ridiculous. Yeah, of course it's coming from China. But the distance, even if you're to put it from Cuba, the distance that they can hit is Cleveland. That's how far north they can go.
Well, they can. Our petroleum reserve is what in right
in Louisiana.
In Louisiana. So it's like we see what happened to the Russian oil refineries and oil storage tanks and oil exports in the Black Sea and the Baltic. They lit them up easily. The Ukrainians just lit them up. I mean, that is America. That's happening to Russia now. That is America in the future if we keep playing these games in the Caribbean.
And you saw what happened at the NATO games yesterday. They had to stop it 3 times.
Yeah,
because
drones are
we couldn't do
drones are
anything.
us, man. And if
Yeah,
nobody,
we couldn't do
look,
anything.
we're only now getting ready to spend the money. We've just allocated the money for drone warfare just now in a serious way. How long before this allocation do we have a result? It's months or years.
And we're going to need, I mean, to develop the systems, we're going to need the Ukrainians for that, to develop the systems that we need to be effective.
Their
We're going to need
innovation
them for that.
is what we
Yeah.
need. But
Now, the Germans are going to
administration
get
will-
that.
Yeah,
The Germans and the other NATO countries, they're going to get that. They're going
Yep.
to get it first because what's Trump said? We don't need the Ukrainians. We don't need them for anything.
yeah. Hegseth said the same thing.
Yeah.
So nonsense. No, there's a real problem here. There's a real disconnect on our side from this administration. I'm afraid this administration is incompetent.
I made a point. I
Yeah.
made a point. Speaking of Iran, and we're talking about Cuba and all this stuff, Venezuela and everything. And I made this point on Monday, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on it. I've not heard anyone in the administration, in the State Department, in the War Department, Department of Defense, whatever it's called. I have not heard anybody in the main. Nobody in the media, the media, conservative media celebrities that Jimmy calls them. Everybody that supports all this, whatever's going on, we're pounding Iran with whatever we got. We're hitting them with B-1Bs, we're hitting them with B-52s, we're hitting them with cruise missiles, we're hitting, I mean, just you name it, we're throwing
Well,
it
that
over
was
there.
6 weeks ago, not anymore.
Well, yeah, but still, we're pounding this country, or we were. You know, we got the ceasefire on now. But I've not heard anyone say with Venezuela, with Cuba, with Iran, not word one from anyone that these countries are being supported by Russia and China.
Yeah, they're Russians and Chinese are all over these countries.
Yes, I've not heard any of them mention that.
Yeah.
We're saying, oh, Iran can't do this because Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. Well, where do you think they got them?
Yeah.
I mean, why are we not saying this? I don't understand the disconnect. Okay, well, Iran's gonna, can't do this. Iran can't do that. We're putting this restriction on them. We're putting that sanction on them, but not word one that they're in the Russian orbit.
Well, this is the reason we're shadow banned, You're not
Yeah.
supposed to say these are your enemies and put everything that's happening in the world in context, that it's Russia, China, Iran, Venezuela, Cuba, North Korea, you and these other countries that the communists have taken over. You're not allowed to use the C word. You can't say communism. You can't talk about socialism because this is an active ingredient in what's going on. And this is part of the active measure. This is part of the deception that's been going on since Gorbachev. When we were told, oh, communism, it's gone, it doesn't exist anymore. Just listen to one of AOC's speeches, or look at the Democratic Party in the United States. What do you mean? What are you talking about? Communism is gone. It's never been stronger in terms of its ability to affect policy and control information flows. And so people, look at all these narratives on the right. It's all about wokeism. They won't talk about communism. Even those who do talk about American Marxism, like Jimmy says, that's not Marxism is a global thing. It's the international workers of the world unite, not workers of America. And it's got these different strategies. And the program of the Communist Party USA is to take women and minorities and immigrants and make a super party, push past the Constitution and make a socialist America. This is what the Democratic Party is openly doing. So,
All right, so the next one here is, and I thought you guys would like this one. What did Obama and Biden do to protect us from China so much more, besides giving them money? I'm going to answer this first. Biden and Obama didn't protect the United States from the Chinese. In fact, Biden and Obama sold out the United States to the Chinese. How do we know that? Well, we allowed them to bring in Huawei cellular equipment to spy on our cellular network. We allowed them to bring their equipment into our electrical grid. And finally, we allowed them to fly a drone, a balloon full of surveillance equipment all the way across the United States without shooting it down. What say you guys?
I'd like to refer back to Jeff's former point. You don't make business deals with these people because they will do exactly that. We're shutting down these wind farms and these solar farms now, finally. I would like to point out the infiltration, some of this infiltration. I mean, I talked about Whiteman Air Force Base and how Miles Guo had that trailer park set up at the north end of the runway.
Yeah.
And they were moving Chinese nationals in there. Lee, you were out at Sunspot above White Sands Missile Range and Holloman Air Force Base. And it took the FBI how many years to get out there and shut that operation down? 5 years. We're asleep at the wheel. We're not minding the store.
The first country overseas country that President Obama visited after he left the presidency was China. I mean, these people, Obama and Biden, when he was running for office in 2020, said, "Oh, the Chinese," and I watched the feed. He said, "Oh, the Chinese leaders, these are good people," he said, about the Chinese murderers. These are good people. This is appalling. Biden was appalling, and Obama was a communist when he was in school. I don't know what changed. You look at all the people around him, and he began his political career in the living room of Bill Ayers and Bernardine Dohrn, who were Weatherman terrorists, Marxist-Leninist terrorists in the 60s. So you can't trust those people, and the communists have infiltrated the Democratic Party, and they've infiltrated the Republican Party, and they've just got different forms of messaging and disinformation to manipulate both parties. And that's what it's boiled down to. We don't have a genuinely patriotic party that has a strategic vision. The strategic vision thing, it's broken. And when the Democrats pretend to be against Russia, it's just a pretense. Biden wasn't really helping Ukraine. He was forced by his having to appear anti-Russian to give in, to do things, to give things to Ukraine. But he was dragging his feet, he was delaying, there were months at a time where we didn't send anything to him, to Ukraine. So I don't give them high marks either. I think even Jonathan Fink, who does the famous podcast about the Ukraine war that's been going on since the beginning of the war, he pointed out that all the things that Biden did that were no good, and that you have a similarity between Trump and Biden, as if our leadership class is under some kind of blackmail from the Russians, where they tell the Russians, well, we'd like to help you and we'll do as much as we can, but we've got the public watching us, so we have to be careful. But they're always giving the Russians things under the table rather than really coming down on the Russians. And this is a real problem, because I think the real problem in our system is people can be bought or blackmailed or swayed by false ideological information warfare. People are so horribly misinformed about the strategic situation. That's one of the things we're trying to do here on this channel, is to show people these are militarized societies with us in their crosshairs. And these wars aren't just about Ukraine or threatening Taiwan or the Middle East. They're about coming after us. We're the big enemy. We're enemy number one. They call us the main enemy. The Russians did, and the Chinese regard us as, because if we didn't exist, all these other countries would have to surrender tomorrow.
I'd like to just pose a question to that. If the Russians and the Chinese are about peace, which they claim to promote all the time, right? If they're all about just defending themselves, tell me something. Why are they all in offensive positions?
The biggest arms buildups in the world right now, they're massively arming Russia and China.
We see just without even looking at what's on NATO's eastern flank, not even looking across that border, okay, at all the buildups, the airfields and the missile sites and everything else that we've shown time and again. If we just look at the number of installations, military installations in Russia and in China, and the United States is a militaristic society. The Europeans
Yeah.
is they're a militaristic continent.
I know.
I'm sorry. Where are we any of that?
Russia's in
Their
a full-blown
propaganda-
worry. Yeah, Russia's in a full-blown war economy as far as producing things,
Yeah.
weapons, and China is building up to it. Is halfway to mobilizing. So, and we know Iran is been doing that. Look at, I mean, how do you have 80,000 drones and missiles built up in Iran if you're not preparing for a big war? What is that? So these people they've just got it in for us. These countries.
The next one is, could the U.S. strike a deal with China to turn a blind eye on Taiwan after manufacturing is established within the U.S. if China drops their support for Iran? My answer to that is no on many levels. No, we won't turn a blind eye to China, and no, China is not going to stop supporting Iran or Russia. What say you, gentlemen?
I don't think you're not going to drive a wedge in between Russia and China, and we've got Trump and all of our top business people in China at the moment. It was not even revealed that those CEOs were on any of those planes until they were halfway across the Pacific on their way. So this fact that we're going to turn a blind eye to China, I'll tell you when they will turn a blind eye to China. If you go back and you read The Perestroika Deception by Anatoly Golitsyn, his memorandums to the CIA, if you read that, there's one very common theme that Golitsyn continues to point out through his writings. And in there, he uses the term bloodbath. That's what he says. He says those in the Western managerial class that think that you're going to do a business deal with people in Russia or the people in China. He didn't really mention China, but he did mention that Russia and China have this unbreakable partnership against the West. But if you think you're going to do business with these people, the only thing that you're accomplishing is you are signing your own death warrants. You are condemning you and your families to death. And I think that goes on to Jeff's earlier point.
Yeah, there's a problem with the basic perception that China is a normal country. No country that is run by a communist party is a normal country. It's not normal. It's a completely abnormal country. And the people there are under a brutal dictatorship that has been arming itself, mainly for a future war against America. They want to own North America. The secret speech of Chiao Chen basically says, well, we need all this farmland. We need to build a second China. We have to teach the Chinese people to go out because China's overpopulated and the environment has been ruined. We need, we can take land anywhere except that the Americans will go against us if we try to take somebody else's land. So we need to take the American land. So we need to go after the United States. So we'll pretend to go after Taiwan, but Taiwan is tiny, insignificant. Who cares about owning that? We'll metabolize that later. But the main thing is to take over the United States. And we're just really naive about what they're thinking of doing. You look at all the wind farms. You look at the 10,000-foot runway that Kyle Bass found they were building in Texas at that wind farm where there's not much wind some years ago, that the Texas legislature intervened and stopped this Chinese general from building it. These are invasion gateways into the U.S. Chinese presence in Mexico. We've covered that. Mexico's an invasion highway into the U.S. The Sidewinder report in Canada about how China was trying to turn Canada into a client state to attack America in the flank. It's all about getting to us here on our home ground, not about Taiwan, not about these other places. And they are going to build up and do their strategy around this future vision. And this is what Colonel Lunev, the GRU defector, said. China and Russia are together and they want to destroy the United States in a future war. We got the testimony. Yeah.
I'd also like to point out, even if you go back and you listen to the interviews of Yuri Bezmenov, he said the same thing. Basically, he says, if you do not stop doing business with these murderers, with these killers, you will make the ropes from which you will hang. That's what will happen to you.
Yeah, there's a punishment for our own evil doing. I mean, if you're going to align yourself with murderers, now you're guilty. And now you're in for something of your own, and you're stupid. You know, the stupid are relentlessly punished. You know.
Would you like to hear something that might go along with that? They kind of correlate with that?
Yeah, sure.
A U.S. government plane just touched down on the tarmac in Havana.
They're gonna let's make a deal time. Is that what it is?
Well, do you want to know who was on the plane?
I don't know.
The director of the CIA, John Radcliffe, with a U.S. delegation. They just want to talk.
Well, he was the first one to go to Venezuela.
He met with Delcy Rodriguez. That's right.
He met with President or Vice President Rodriguez, right? Because they're expecting Maduro to come home.
Comrade Rodriguez.
Comradish Rodriguez. No, I mean, look, we're sending Ratcliffe to Cuba. You know, this is weird. This is really weird.
Yeah.
You think some hardened old guy like Raul Castro, 94 years old, with all those Cuban generals, you think they are going to honestly make a deal with the Americans? No, they're not. Whatever deal they make is going to be a broken promise. You know, just like Lenin said, treaties are like pie crusts. They're meant to be broken. They're not going to keep faith with us. It's ridiculous. So this is his version of detente. This is Trump's version of detente.
Yeah, it's just like Lenin said. Well, was it the speech? Said, "Well, Comrade Lenin, how are we going to get to the capitalists?" And he says, "We're going to sell them the ropes. How are we going to hang the capitalists? We're going to sell them the ropes."
Where it was Karl Radek supposedly said to Lenin, "Where are we going to get a rope big enough to hang the world bourgeoisie?" And he said, "They're going to sell it to us themselves."
All right,
Yeah.
so the next question is for Jeff. Are you familiar with the Sedevaticanist movement within the Catholic Church and their strange affinity for Russia, especially in regards to the excommunicated Archbishop Vigano? Is that how you say his last name?
And Vigano is quite pro-Russian. I'm shocked. You know, he seems like a good guy otherwise, but he's the Russian the Russian, I guess you could say they call him a philosopher, Alexander Dugin, has led this movement to infiltrate, quote unquote, traditional religion, Islam, Buddhism, you know, all these different countries, Middle East, South America, Africa. And I've talked to experts in these regions who've talked about this, but the Catholic Church, especially in Europe and South America and here in the US, has been targeted. And the big concern is this right-wing people who see the Pope as being too liberal. They're angry about Vatican II, right? About it being a break with tradition. These are the most potentially anti-communist Catholics that you could find. They don't want any dealings with the communists, but yet the Russians have wooed them over, and they've gone down to the parish level, I understand, and they've gotten they've gotten the most conservative priests in this movement to think that Vladimir Putin is a Christian and that he's fighting the satanic element in the West that is opposed to the Catholic Church. So this type of Catholic is vulnerable to this kind of infiltration, and there's been a number of bishops. There is also the Pius the 10th. What is it? It's another semi-breakaway. They're not completely excommunicated, I don't think, but another group that also has this possibility. The Russians have tried to infiltrate them, And so it's if you are a conservative, if you're a traditionalist conservative, you are targeted, especially by the Russians, with their propaganda. And of course, this propaganda from Dugin, it is a lie. To say that liberalism, in Western liberalism and Americanism, is the enemy, and Russia is your salvation. And a lot of people have bought into this lie.
So the question is, why would the United States want to attack Cuba?
The only reason would be to liberate Cuba from communist control and to remove the communist regime there. But the fact that we're going to negotiate with them means that we're going to invest in Cuba as a communist country with those communists still in place. And that's the wrong formula.
Yeah, it's you're right. The only reason would be to liberate the Cuban people, to free them from that horrible thing. But I think there's an even bigger problem there. That's not even possible anymore, is it? I mean, we were talking about the culture that's developed there. I guess it's just
Communism
way
ruins. Look, everybody who had any wherewithal in Cuba went to Miami. They fled.
That's right.
So you've got this psychologically damaged, impoverished group of people in that island that are completely dependent on the state. And I don't know, I've heard even Cubans say this is a problem, and they don't know how their country, they want to see their country liberated, but they don't know what their country has become under this government. They don't know how to change it back into what it used to be. And obviously the process of healing would be long. I think the fear from some Americans is that we would have to pay to support these people then, because, what would happen? I don't know. I think communist regimes should be rolled back. We shouldn't be having this communist fortress 90 miles off our shore. We shouldn't have, what happened to the Monroe Doctrine? Allowing these foreign communist troops. There's Chinese and Russian troops in Venezuela. You can bet there's Chinese military people and advisors and intelligence people all over Cuba.
Absolutely.
The Chinese have one of their biggest listening posts down there.
Yeah, this should not. We should not be tolerating this. President Roosevelt, when World War II broke out, he made a quarantine line. You can't go past this line with your U-boats or your ships in the Atlantic. You can't, you get involved in Latin America, we're going to come after you. Of course, the Nazis did get involved, I think, with the Perón regime in Argentina and had their own infiltration, but we weren't going to tolerate, ended up, Perón had to declare war on Hitler towards the end of the war. So, we were going to be dictating to these countries. This was part of our hemisphere. We weren't going to allow any other country to come here. This was kind of the American sort of dominance of this hemisphere. This is all old. It doesn't happen anymore. These countries do what they want, and they thumb their nose at us all the time. And the communists, the Russians and Chinese have come in. This is what the former head of Southern Command, General Laura Richardson, said in the first year that she was in her command, is that China and Russia are taking over Latin America. And we haven't really done anything about it. Kidnapping Maduro is just a showboating.
Yeah, she and
did
Van
you
Herk were sitting in there, and they were. I watched the whole, the 2.5 hour testimony or whatever it was, and they were begging, all but begging. They weren't asking for money because we don't have it, but they were asking for resources. General Richardson specifically, she was asking for resources to be able to do her job, to partner with our allies that are in Latin America. Some countries just wanted, I don't know, a couple of trucks, a Jeep, a helicopter or something, and we couldn't even get that. She couldn't get that. Mm-hmm. She was doing her best, and I believe that under her command she did as best she could with what she had to work with. Same thing with Van Herk, but these people that we have in these commands, they're constricted by politics. They're constricted by a budget. That was the excuse that they were given, that her and Van Herk were given anytime they would ask for something or they would bring something up. saying that this needs to be done, or we think that needs to be done. And we're losing time on this, and this has to be done to counter Russia. This has to be done to counter China. And the only thing that they would get, the only response they would get from the senators would be something about a budget. And it would be come down to a monetary question. And I'm thinking to myself, and I'm feeling sorry for the two generals that are sitting there. I'm thinking to myself, what is the cost of defending our country worth? We talk about the defense of our country and protecting Americans, but what is it worth?
What's even worse, it seems that this direction, the strategic direction coming from underneath us, is being intentionally shortchanged.
Yeah.
I think that's the message here, is that this...
And to the north. And to the north. Above the Arctic.
Well, they took down the dew line, and Canada's been undermined, and the cooperation between Canada and the U.S. under NORAD has been undermined by President Trump. So if it's not undermined by the Democrats, in one sense, it's undermined by the Republicans.
Yeah, well, I mean, from a military strategic point, Van Herk was arguing the fact that we don't have a single refueling depot in the Arctic. How many do the Russians have? A lot. We're getting pushed out of the Arctic by the Russians.
It's worse than that. We don't even have our own refueling ships. We're contracting those out. In fact, their commercial vessels are refilling U.S. military ships now. It's absolutely ludicrous. Also, I want to announce we're not going to take any more questions. We're going to answer the ones that are in the chat, but there's still a whole row of questions in the chat. We're never going to get done if we keep taking questions. So please don't put any more questions in the chat. We're going to try to answer the ones that are still there. The question is for Jeff. Have you spoken with Mr. Wang of Lewd Media recently?
No, I think my last discussion with him was in December, and so I haven't talked to him since recent events. Now with this meeting with Trump, I'm interested in talking to him again. But his position is of course that China is a long-term strategy to take down the United States, and it's rather complicated. But as far as when they actually go to war, he's kind of shifted on this, maybe because his sources in China are shifting. But Mr. Wang very famously revealed this, 57-minute tape of a military civil meeting in Guangdong, talking about mobilizing for war against the United States. And I think a lot of its sources got arrested back then. So I don't know what the actual veracity of his sources are now, that the Chinese intelligence service have sort of gone after his sources. So I'm less interested in what he's saying now than I was back then.
The next question is, how long will it take for America to start feeling the effects of the strait being closed? Will the rest of the world feel it worse than the U.S.? We're already feeling it here in the United States. Just go to the gas pump. Ask any farmer that wants fertilizer. So, yeah, we're already feeling it.
And farmers use diesel as well to do their farms. My farmer buddy, 35,000 gallons a year he uses. So when it went up $1 a gallon in one night, that was a $35,000 hit on one night that he took.
Okay, and the next one. Do you think Vance and Hegseth are part of the Alexander Dugin cult? No.
I think Vance is. I think Vance has been sucked into that through Peter Thiel and probably Mencius Moldbug. Yeah, Curtis Yarvin.
You had to say. You have to give him his pen name.
Give him his pen name. I think these guys are taking the Dugin line, and they're fashioning it into something that is palatable to Americans. And I think Vance is susceptible to that. I think he's quoted Curtis Yarvin in speeches. He's taken this Peter Thiel line. They are not to be trusted.
Okay. IRGC will fail. Cuba commies will fail. Trump is trying to do decades of work in a short time. That's not a question. Why did you put that in my questions list? So, should Iran be able to have nuclear bombs? Hell no. Iran should not be allowed to have nuclear bombs. Would you consider it possible that Trump's diplomatic gestures with Ding-a-ling Ping and Putin are some type of Trojan horse move? I don't think so. What do you guys say?
What is a Trojan horse?
Do we think Trump is faking the talks? Is that what the question is? Do we think he's putting on a show?
Would you consider it
is that my understanding of it?
possible? Would you consider it possible that Trump is trying to consolidate them to take them off? No, wait a minute, hold on. Would you consider it possible that Trump's diplomatic gestures with Ding-a-ling Ping and Putin are some type of Trojan horse move? Is it possible that Trump is trying to consolidate them to take them off their guard? No.
No, I don't think that. I mean, look at what he's done. All you have to do is look at the actions that have been taken. You know, we were talking earlier about the sanctions. Where are the sanctions? Where's the 500% sanctions or tariffs rather on China? Where are the 500% sanctions that are on Russia? And those sanctions, when they go on, why aren't they left there? Instead, you get 25, 50, 100, 200% on our allies.
All right, the next one. How does the U.S. get foreign money and foreign influence out of elections and out of our administration? I'll give that one to you, Jeff or Johnny.
For foreign influence in our elections?
They donate to PACs that are inside the United States.
That's one way. American companies having deals with China don't want policies that are going to constrict the China-U.S. trade. So they're going to give out a free trade thing to the Republican Party and say, we need to do this. And of course, the major corporations involved in China give to both political parties. So it's an indirect form of leveraging our political elites. And of course, then there's the way that American politicians like Biden and Obama share certain ideological or friendships with the Chinese that are worrying.
Look at who worked for Biden. His chief of staff or whatever was in charge with the Chinese.
Yeah.
Go into that a minute, if you would.
Well, you had that Alaska meeting with the Biden administration. The Chinese basically thought that they had basically controlled America when the Biden administration came in, and they went over to this Alaska meeting. What was it, in 2021? And they dictated to us, and it didn't go over very well. It kind of, but I think they really thought, because these people were leftists, that they were subordinate to them within the communist world movement. And it didn't quite work out the way the Chinese hoped.
Well, and you've talked about it many times before. When Biden was a young senator, and he went to Russia, I mean, Bukovsky, he had it in his archives.
The Central Committee, a secretary in the Communist Party Soviet Union Central Committee, had a note where he'd met with Biden, and Biden said, look, I apologize for talking ill of the Soviet Union, but I have to do that for public consumption, but I'm really your guy. And this is what this memo is about. So this is who Biden is. China and Russia, they're both communist countries. So this is why they both have their approach to the U.S. The Chinese are very much engaged with us financially, and that engagement is corrupting. And it opens a way to influencing our elections, our politicians, our businessmen. Look, I mean, in some respect, America's a plutocratic system. That is, elections aren't just decided by votes, they're decided by the sophisticated money people who have access to media and have the sort of the control panel to swing elections. Not entirely, you know. There's other factors at work, but it's been very powerful, and it's kept the Chinese in their position of engagement. I mean, once they entered the World Trade Organization, which was a disaster, it's like we can't. It's like they're a drug for us that we have to keep taking, and we get worse and worse in our addiction to cheap Chinese stuff.
There's a statement that's been released by the Cuban government. Would you like for me to read it?
Yes, please.
It says, this has been translated from Spanish, from the Revolutionary Government Information Department. Keyword revolutionary. Following the request submitted by the U.S. government that a delegation presided over by the CIA Director John Radcliffe be received in Havana, the Revolutionary Directorate approved the realization of this visit in the meeting with its counterpart from the Ministry of the Interior. The meeting took place this Thursday, May 14th, in a context characterized by the complexity of bilateral relations in order to contribute to political dialogue between the two nations, as a part of the efforts to address the current scenario. The elements provided by the Cuban side and the exchanges held with the U.S. delegation made it possible to categorically demonstrate that Cuba does not constitute a threat to the national security of the U.S. Sorry. Nor are there legitimate reasons to include in it, nor are there legitimate reasons to include it on the list of countries that allegedly sponsor terrorism. During the, you see how they did that there? They're talking about Iran. During the meeting, the consistency and coherence of our country's historical position with the actions of the Cuban government and its competent authorities in confronting and unequivocally condemning terrorism in all its forms and manifestations could be verified. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I know this is just typical way of expressing themselves as communists. They're always innocent. Imperialism is always bad. They haven't done anything wrong. They're not the warmongers. The warmongers are in Washington. The free market system is inherently militaristic, yet they're the ones that are living in a barrack state with everybody armed and everybody living on breadcrumbs, you know.
I would just like to point out, for those that have not read or heard of the book called The Terror Network by Claire Sterling, go read that book. And then I want you to tell me about how much bull is in all of that I just read from the revolutionary government of Cuba. They have and have had for decades terrorist training camps in Cuba. Their DGI people, their Cuban intelligence people, are the trainers in some of these camps, not just in Cuba, but in other countries around the world. The Russians will use them. They will contract them. And the DGI is nothing more than a subset of the KGB.
All right, next question is, how do you square Trump's willingness to do business with the Chinese with his recognition that China, Russia, and North Korea are conspiring against the United States, as he has said when all three leaders met last? Your thoughts, gentlemen?
Could you read that again?
I can. I'm not sure it's going to come out any better. How do you square Trump's willingness to do business with the Chinese with his recognition that China, Russia, and North Korea are conspiring against the United States, as he said when all three leaders met last? My comment is, I think Trump just wants to do business with everybody because that's just the way he does business. And he thinks if you're doing business together, it's less likelihood that they will stab you in the back. But I do not agree with that assessment.
I don't think that there's any recognition from the administration or even any of these think tanks that are around the administration that advise on policy. I don't think any of them are even aware of the fact that these are adversaries to the United States. Our official position, unless something has changed regarding Russia and China, is they are considered strategic partners somehow.
They're what?
At least that's what I've heard. That's what I've heard in the Senate Armed Services Committee.
I don't have to square Trump's inconsistencies. He's lazy.
No.
He doesn't finish anything, just like Anthony Scaramucci said, who knows him and worked with him for more than a year. He's lazy. He doesn't finish things. He doesn't think. You know, somebody who doesn't think, who doesn't read, is not going to be logically consistent in anything. He doesn't have any consistency. Nothing he does is consistent. Our allies in NATO, he puts these tariffs on them. He damages our relationship with Canada, and here we're facing these enemies. Why is he, out to get our allies and out to make a deal with our enemies? Nothing is consistent in what he does. Nothing is logical. Nothing even makes sense. The guy doesn't make any sense. And he thinks that because he says something or does something, then it's great. It's super, it's big, 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 and it's the most important thing. I mean, he's just not very smart. He's not playing 3D chess. He's just faking it.
Next question is, why do German companies keep investing in China? My answer in one word, profit. What say you, gentlemen?
It's because the Green Party in Germany and the other parties, Angela Merkel, went along with getting rid of their nuclear power, getting rid of their coal burning plants. They lost their energy. They did, the cost, you live in Germany, Johnny, the cost of energy there is higher than other places. How can you have an industrial base when your electricity costs are so big? So the companies have to move out. Well, where are they going to move out to? They're going to move out, and the technology and the industries and the machine tools are going to go to China. That's what's happening because they can't survive. They can't compete in Germany because the electrical costs are too high.
And you can also throw the Russians in with that one too, because the idea was to get the Germans addicted to Russian energy. And then when that got cut off, the businesses would be forced to leave and go to China.
Yeah, the Ukraine war, basically, Germany had a choice to remain industrial, prosperous and industrial, and go with Russia against Ukraine. And I think the Russians thought that was what they would have to do. But since they couldn't go against, invading an innocent country and murdering all those people, the only logical thing was, well, we can't support these industries anymore.
And now
All
they
right.
need them.
Is diplomacy with Russia and China like riding a tiger with high likelihood of winding up inside of its stomach? Well, that's the only reason that China and Russia are doing anything with us, so is that they can manipulate it.
I'd like to point out one thing on
Okay.
that. Lunev told you something, Jeff. You said, when will they actually come for us? You said, when they get every last dollar from you, when they can't get any more
when
money
they
out of you.
sucked you all the money they can get out of you, then they'll go to war against you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, data centers are being built at an alarming rate. Will they be used for citizen surveillance like in China? They're already being used for citizen surveillance like in China. Look at flock cameras. I mean, really, what the flock do you think they're doing?
Yeah,
You gentlemen-
I'll tell you something
by a government building, they've got that facial
That's
recognition
right.
technology. They know you're there.
Yeah. And they know everything about you. They know where you live. They know where your family lives. They know your blood type when you go by.
They know your
they know
medical
every
record,
address.
your employment history,
right.
your taxes,
Yep.
everything.
Yeah. And I'll tell you something, data centers, if we're talking about drone attacks, as we were doing earlier, data centers are on those lists. So unless a data center is being built, I don't know, underground and has anti-drone defenses around it, I don't know how you're going to protect it. Right?
Yeah, good luck. You're not, the data centers in the U.S. are so
Yeah,
vulnerable,
good
you
luck.
can take them out with a pellet gun.
Yeah, that's my point. I mean, if we're talking about massive drone attacks coming out of Mexico, run by the cartels, and out of Cuba and out of Venezuela, that's going to be a logical target for them. Why not?
All right, next question. Do you see where the hold on. Do you see where the current Pope recently awarded the highest public award possible to an IRGC member and also established a Muslim prayer room within the Vatican? No, I hadn't seen that.
It's not too
No, I don't.
surprising.
Don't know anything about it.
Okay, and why is the U.S. exporting oil? For profit. What say you?
Yeah, if oil is gone,
Yeah.
price of oil is going up and you're selling it cheaper here and you can get more for it selling it somewhere else, you're going to sell it somewhere else.
And we do have European allies that need oil, so we're going to sell it to them. Same thing with Japan.
Okay, that's it for all of the questions. Do you gentlemen have anything else you'd like to add before we call it? Because, well, we've actually been at it for 2 hours and 22 minutes.
No, I would just like to do my usual thank you to everybody. Thank you to you guys. It's been a great conversation as always. If you'd like to follow our socials, you can do so by checking out everything down below.
Jeff?
Yeah. Thanks for having me. This has been interesting. A good chance to discuss some things.
Yes, we are indeed living in interesting times. And if you are interested in joining the KLW World News family, it's easy to do. Just go to klwworldnews.com and get signed up there. If you want to get notified anytime we're going live, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/KLW News. And you folks want to drop your contact information. Johnny, Jeff?
Yes, you can check out the podcast that I put out every week. It's called Dynamic Independence. It's available everywhere you get your podcasts, on Apple, on Google, Spotify, Amazon, Alexa devices, all the rest of it. I'm there, obviously. Jeff's there, Trevor's there, Jimmy's there, Lee's there, Marty's there. Everybody's there. So you'll find all of us in good company in the same place.
Jeff?
Yeah, jrnyquist.blog and my page at Amazon where you can get my books. Buy The Fool and His Enemy. That's a nice little read.
All right, folks, and of course, you can always watch us here on KLW World News. This is now our primary news channel. We were on an alternative channel for the last 90 days due to issues with the fine folks at ScrewTube, but we're now back on our primary channel, and we are monetized once again on this channel, although they did remove all of our members. So if you were a member and you thought that YouTube was going to give you your membership back, well, according to the data, they only did it for 2 people as far as I can see thus far. So get signed back up on the channel. We're going to be doing all of our nightly news broadcasts here, and we're doing a 24-hour war watch on our backup channel. So with that, I want to thank you all for being here. We will see you next Tuesday with Johnny and next Thursday with Jeff and Johnny. Thanks for being here. We'll see you soon.